a lot has changed, and the same can be said about insights, and the same can be said about a business.
My name is Merrill Dubrow, CEO of Mark Research. I'm a 35-year veteran of the research and insights community and the host of our podcast, On the Mark. On the Mark is focusing on executives and thought leaders in the world, sharing their insights, strategies, and personal experiences. I promise this podcast will be filled with tough, pointed questions with real, insightful, and emotional answers. Today's guest is Dale Sanko, the Director of Consumer Insights at Designer Shoe Warehouse. Dale, welcome to the On the Mark podcast.
Great, Merrill. Great to join everybody today.
Thanks, Dale. I appreciate it. So just let's start with something that people would be surprised to know about you. Anything jump out?
Really two things, especially as an insights leader. One maybe not as surprising, that especially working for DSW, that I'm an avid runner. Been running for a little over 10, 12 years of my life. And it's a great way to get some thinking time and get some benefits of some health and enjoying being outside. I think the other neat thing about me from an insight standpoint is I'm actually an engineer. My collegiate degree is in engineering and have found, though, my passion in consumer insights.
Wow, that is interesting. So my longest race that I've ever done is I've done a bunch of 5Ks. I once did a 10K that I regret doing. I've never even thought about a half marathon or a marathon. Have you actually tackled a marathon?
It's funny you say that story, because when I started running, actually my first race was in Virginia Beach, where I did a half marathon and I, let's just say, barely finished. And after that, I came back and said, well, I'm going to train some more and do some more half marathons, but I'll never do a whole marathon. Fast forward 10 years, I frankly have lost track. I think I'm up to around 9 or so whole marathons.
Wow.
My by far favorite one is New York City. I've had the opportunity to run in that one twice.
I love the story until you told me your favorite was New York City. I was praying and hoping you said Boston, but that's fine, Dale.
I am not fast enough to get into Boston.
So you've tried to qualify and tried to enter, but you just couldn't get a number?
Qualifying times for, let's just say, my age are a little bit faster than I think I'm going to be able to do.
All right. Well, great. Yeah, let's go on to your job and your current responsibilities today. Can you just level set a little bit for the listeners of the podcast?
Absolutely. Today, I lead insights for Designer Shoe Warehouse, or also known as DSW. We're a retailer with over 500 locations in the US and Canada, selling both men's, women's, and children's shoes throughout the country, and as well as online through DSW.com. In my work, I lead all of our consumer insights work, both understanding who our consumer is, how our brand should be positioned, how our competition is performing, and where is our category going. And it's a great opportunity to really bring the consumer to the forefront of making all of our decisions at DSW.
The way you said that, where your brand is going, which I probably wouldn't have asked you this 6.5 months ago because I think I knew where your brand was going. But with the pandemic, it's crushed a lot of retail businesses. Where is the brand going? Where is Insights going to take the brand? Can you elaborate a little bit?
Right. Now, Merrill, it's been a interesting 6 months for all of us, both from our health, our safety, our financial situations, our professional lives, and our personal lives. I have 2 young children, and we're having some school at home, some school at school. A lot has changed, and the same can be said about insights, and the same can be said about a business. In mid-March, we made the decision to close all of our stores and instantly became a .com business and a highly successful .com business. We've had to look at, what is the consumer buying? What is she interested in? What is she not interested in? And quickly make those pivots as we're all spending, more time at home, more time, with our friends and family. We're not out having big weddings and family reunions and graduations and so on and so forth. We've had to use consumer insights to really understand, what is she looking for today? And how do we evolve our product assortment? And then thinking about, how do we sell it to her? How do we get that product to her where she may not be comfortable coming into a retail environment? But that's the power of being agile and very quick and nimble and flexible. And we've been able to pivot our business very quickly.
So the insights function that you lead, can you talk a little bit about the number of team members you have? Have you kind of pivoted with some of the business that you had earmarked? Maybe it was a tracking study, maybe it was a segmentation study, to doing something a little bit different with your team members and using those budgeted dollars?
We had come into the year with a solid plan of how we were going to spend our money, some of the programs and capabilities I was looking to build. But as COVID really expanded, we had to take a step back and say, what do I need to do versus what do I want to do? And one of the first priorities was to really map out, even in March, Meryl, where do I think this pandemic is going? And I look back at what I wrote, and I was actually pretty accurate, about how long this thing's going to last, some of the levels of impact it was going to have on the consumers. And at the time, we didn't know if this was going to be a 2-week thing, a 3-month thing, or a 2-year thing. But I really focused on, where is the consumer going to go? And what do we need to do to grow our business? Much of our work, though, has really pivoted to really understanding the here and now. We may have been running tracking studies, every quarter. We frankly have had to pick those up to be about every 2 weeks to every month, because the consumer is changing so quickly. And even looking back at some of that data earlier on this week, it's amazing how quickly the consumer habits have evolved in a relatively short time period.
My opinion would be that we're not even, we're in the almost getting close to the end of September here as we do this podcast. And my sense is we're just getting close to about halfway through the pandemic. I believe the pandemic is going to go on until at least April of 2021. And by on, I mean, I know there'll be continuous people who get it, but I think the vaccine will be out, and I think we'll be in a much better position then than we are now. But I also believe that businesses down the road will be much better off. Like, obviously, a lot of people, your online business has to be up 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe even 10x. And I'm looking for a number, Dale, but maybe affirmation that it is way up. And I think that's going to continue to be way up as you go on. Now, obviously, as customers come back to your stores, which they will. I mean, look, I'm not into buying shoes online. I'll buy shoes online today, but not in 8 months, right? I'd rather go in the store. I'd rather see all the different kinds. It's just more of an experience for me, and that's how I want to shop. But the pandemic, I think, is going to help a number of retailers. Do you see that to be true as well from your standpoint?
Absolutely. And I think, Meryl, the way I think about it, for all of our businesses, the things that have changed in COVID, outside of having to wear a mask and having hand sanitizer everywhere, and some of those very specific medical things, the trends were already starting before there. You think about value, you think about convenience, you think about flexibility, think about having something shipped to your home. All of those trends were happening, well before 2020. What COVID has done, in my opinion, is accelerated those trends tremendously. You could say it's 5 years of trend, 7 years of trend, whatever the number is. The consumer has experienced a rapid amount of change. And now, because of the duration of the pandemic, and I agree with you, I think we're into much of this health and safety perspective probably until Q2, Q3 next year. These changes are going to become permanent. Now, not all of them to the same extent. And to your point, consumers do love to come into an apparel retail shop to try on clothes. There's something special about seeing yourself, the look, the feel, the touch. But you look about the amount of business and how FedEx and Amazon and UPS are preparing for the holidays. Millions of consumers have experienced this new behavior of ordering online or having something delivered to them within a matter of 24 to 72 hours. They really like that. And I think those habits are here to stay. The businesses that will be successful in the future are the ones that took advantage of that and not only have grown their store base, but also focusing on meeting the customer where the customer wants to be at.
I totally agree with you, and well said. Let's switch gears for a minute. So, I grew up in Massachusetts, and I spent a lot of time in a place called Saratoga, New York. I have a lot of relatives there, Dale, and their tagline was the August place to be. I know, because you and I have talked about this, in your past, you spent 15 years at P&G, and I guess if there was a tagline for their insights department, would it be the insights place to be?
For insights at Procter & Gamble, I went to, as I mentioned in the introduction, I have an engineering degree. It was chemical engineering. Graduated from a small university in St. Louis called Washington University in St. Louis. And, started my career designing the processes and tools to make toilet paper and paper towels, which is a great business to be in right now. But what that taught me was, how to be a business leader, how to influence and lead an organization. And I started that on the technical side, where I was literally designing how fibers come together on a paper machine. But it also gave me the opportunity when I was leading a smaller team in Latin America to see the marketing and consumer insight side of the business. And it's really where I found my passion. And I had the opportunity in the back half of my time at P&G to lead, consumer insights, or what Proctor would call product insights, or product research, on dishwashing products, and really, really enjoyed that experience of learning how to do solid quantitative research, qualitative research, but most importantly, focusing on what do I do with these insights and how do I take these insights to grow a business or grow a brand?
Yeah, no, I think there's some really great nuggets there. So I don't know if you've ever done this, but if I asked you to pull out a piece of paper, grab a pencil, and write down between DSW, P&G, and Wendy's the millions of dollars that you have subcontracted out to agencies, suppliers like my company, what do you think that number is? Is it north of 100 million? Is it well beyond that?
Honestly, Merrill, I'm not sure how to put a number to that. I think it might take me a while. I do think, at each organization, we had, strong relationships with different supplier partners at different times. Some were clearly better than others, but it's safe to say it's a fairly substantial number of internal spend as well as external spend.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting to, that it is a huge number, and I'm not sure either one of us could put a number to it, but I'll bet you if you added it up, it has a lot of zeros, a bunch of commas, and you'd be surprised. But my questions are around suppliers and agencies like mine where, we talk a lot about, and we've made a lot of progress in a lot of areas, but when suppliers miss the boat, is there any common themes where over and over we just come up a little bit short, miss the boat? I know that most of your partners and most of your suppliers are phenomenal and do a great job project after project. But when there are misses, we all know that. Are there any common themes?
I would say actually the biggest common theme of where there's a miss is really actually in two areas. And I think both, and I'm a believer, and we can talk more about this today, around it's a partnership, and it takes both the supplier and the brand working together, and both have to hold up their end of the bargain. Now, obviously, there's a commerce part being exchanged, which is important to both sides. But I think that the two areas where we've had problems in the past before really come down to, one is about communication. And I think, where I've had disappointments, it's because either I wasn't communicating well enough or my particular partner wasn't communicating back to me well enough. And that has to be a mutual two-way conversation. But when there's a breakdown in communication, then usually the project is also suffering. I would say perhaps the bigger one, which is more on the supplier side, to be honest with you, is about details. And if I hire some work out or bring a partner in for a particular quantitative or qualitative piece of work, I don't want to spend time having to proofread all of your work. Because if I'm doing that, then why am I hiring it out in the first place? And there was an example way, way back in my time at Procter & Gamble where we were sending dishwashing products to consumers for a use test at home. And we got the results back, and we're starting to go through the results, and we're just looking at them going, these don't make any sense. We're seeing some basically mishmash of what we would have expected through the work that actually we did, not the supplier did. What we found out was that the supplier had mailed about half the wrong product to half of the wrong consumers. So I basically had a big mess that I had to go clean up.
Wow.
But that's an attention to detail that I hold the suppliers highly accountable for in getting that right each and every time.
Yeah, no, that's great stuff. In terms of your partners, has COVID forced you to rely on less partners, meaning that, hey, look, I may have had 10 research partners, now I have 8 because I really want to really key on them and really get to know them and have them get to know my business a little bit more? Or is it about the same number?
I would say it's come down a little bit.
Yeah.
And that has been driven even before COVID. I'm sure many of the partners, both on the agency side and on the brand side listening today, it all comes down to budgets. And everybody's budget, pre-COVID was continuing to get squeezed. As businesses are looking for profit and growth in different ways, insights is important. And we all certainly hopefully feel that in our organization. But we also need to be financially accountable. And I think that's been one of the biggest challenges of picking the right partners is how do you find a financial arrangement that has to be a win-win for both sides. But I won't kid you, Merrill, there's budget pressure on the brand side is certainly real. And for most of us, it's now even more heightened because of COVID.
Well, that's an interesting point. So what I want to follow up on is, I obviously consider you an insights professional, but I also consider you a business executive guru. Is there one, from the business side, is there one learning that COVID has given you, or maybe a couple learnings as a business professional, as a business executive?
In terms of being a business leader, what COVID has really done is forced me to focus. Insights is relatively new at DSW. There's a long way of an airline, plane ramp or runway, so to speak, to grow the organization. And it's easy coming in as a senior leader to say, I want to go do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, all these ideas to grow the business. But when COVID hit, it really forced us, not only from an insight standpoint, but also from a business standpoint, to get really focused. And I actually think, Merrill, that focus has helped because it's so easy in working in business to say, I would love to go do this project on black and white shoes for kids. I'm making all this up. But if I take a step back and say, hey, those types of shoes going to grow my top line the way I need to right now? The answer is probably not. But if I think about how do I move our business to a .com, or how do I continue growing, particular areas of our business, that's going to have a dramatic impact. And it's really helped me to prioritize and focus which projects am I going to work on and which projects am I going to kind of put to the back burner for now.
Yeah, no, that's great. I know all the listeners, and I can hear it in your voice with every conversation that we have, Dale, that, you have such passion and you love business and you love DSW and you want to move things forward. What's the most rewarding part of your job?
What's the most rewarding, I would say, is seeing my insights directly grow the business.
Wow.
As an insights leader, our job is to think about learn this piece of data, or we see a piece of syndicated data, you're using, an analyst earnings report or some other piece of data. How do we put that together in a way that just doesn't say, well, here's the data, but here's what I'm going to go do with it, and here's why I should do that. And a great example, Merrill, I think we may have mentioned earlier, had the opportunity to lead insights at Wendy's. And it's hard to believe, but that brand introduced 4 for 4, almost 5 years ago at this point. 4 for 4 was born from consumer insights. It was born from how much do people want to spend for a meal. We had to package it together in a way that worked, for the franchisee system and a way that worked for speed of service in the restaurant. But the super empowering thing was seeing my insights and the collaborative work of our team come together in a very, very tangible way that resulted in business growth. That, to me, is the power of insights.
It's interesting because I happen to shop at Kohl's, and on the Kohl's receipt, and the customer service person is trained to tell you, thank you, Mr. Dubrow, for your purchase today, and you saved $52. Not that you spent $59, you saved $52. And why that's impactful is because when you get home and you're talking to your spouse or friends or whatever, well, I went shopping today and I saved X amount of dollars. The problem was that JCPenney made, and I think was the death of them, is they took away the sales. Their attitude was, oh my God, we're going to have a sale 365 days a year. And that's not what consumers want. What they really want to know is, I got a great deal. Not that I spent $200, but that I saved $74. So it's interesting, the 4x4 example. It's the same thing. It's just it's obviously retail versus QSR. It's interesting. Dale, pick a number, 4, 5, or 6.
Number 5.
Give me 5 must-haves to be a great insights professional. 5 must-haves.
I should have chosen a smaller number, Merrill.
I know. Well, everybody, you know this isn't rehearsed. Absolutely. But now you got to give me 5. You got to give the listeners 5. 5 must-haves. You don't even need to defend it.
We'll see where this goes. But I think the number one thing I look for in a great insights leader is being inquisitive. And I think, I'll spend a little bit of time on that, and I'll stall long enough to think of the other 4. But as I look to hire talent, it's almost being the proverbial 3 and 4-year-old of continuing to ask why. You have to be inquisitive as an insights leader, else you will not be successful in insights. Number 2 would be balancing out qualitative and quantitative. And I think obviously as, folks listening mature in your career, you may be able to choose a path. But I actually see that the best qualitative researchers have a strong quantitative background. And same thing for the best quantitative researchers, they know how to do qualitative as well. Number 3 is about knowing your business, and whether you're working on supplier side or brand side, you have to know how that business makes money. And if you think about the case of restaurants and many restaurant brands, if you're working with a restaurant, they're working with franchisees. Franchisors and franchisees make money differently. As a business leader, as a supplier partner, you have to know what matters to those organizations in order to be successful. Number 4 is all around know the consumer and know everything about him and her. So we may be in DSW, it's very easy to get focused on, does she like a heel? Does she like a boot? Is she looking for a wedge? Is she looking for a sandal? It's more important, though, that I know that consumer throughout the entire process of her life. Because unfortunately, she's not thinking about shoes every minute of her life. We would love that to happen, but she's not doing it. She may be a mom. She may be a grandparent. She may be a student. How do you know about her life and her entire existence helps you understand that. Number 5, I think, is a big one. And Merrill, I credit you for doing a lot of this for the community, is give back. Whether you're young in your career or whether you're more senior in your career, take that opportunity to mentor or learn from those around you. Merrill and I are both involved in the graduate program at Michigan State University. Not only is it an outstanding program, but it's also an opportunity for me as an insights leader to give back to the next generation, to help the students and potential students see the power of insights, because it also helps hone my skills as a leader as well. So I think with that one, I think I've met the challenge of giving you 5. Fortunately, I didn't say 6.
Well, I'll tell you what, I think the listeners are going to love that list of 5. That's fantastic. For anybody listening, inquisitive, balance qual and quant, knowing your business, know the consumer, and then give back. And Dale, I got 2 thank yous. Number 1, first one is I've had the opportunity to work with you on Michigan State Board. I want to thank you for your energy. I know you've been on the board for 6+ years. Thank you, thank you, thank you. As the incoming chair, we'll definitely be relying on you next year to give back a little more and have an impact. And I want to thank you for your time today. Thanks for listening. This is the On the Mark podcast. My name is Merrill Dubrow, and have a great day.